Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. This is the second part of Tilly's 2023 Trans Rep in Media. This week we're discussing the first half of Trans Rep in Television. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, the co-star I'm always fine with stepping into my shot, Susan Bridges.
Hello. I like that one. That's funny.
Thank you. Our returning guest is critic and journalist MAUREEN, a contributing editor at Vanity Fair who has written for Entertainment Weekly, The New York Times, EW, Salon, GQ, and Vulture. Prior to joining Vanity Fair, she worked as a television critic at Variety, Huffington Post, and the Chicago Tribune. In addition to criticism, opinion pieces, and feature stories about the entertainment industry, she has spent much of the last decade writing in-depth pieces on matters of inclusion, misconduct, and abuse in Hollywood, and on efforts to make the industry better on a variety of fronts. Her first book, Burn It Down: Power, Complicity, and a Call for Change in Hollywood, is a deeper exploration of these issues and was released last June. Welcome back, Mo.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course. We were book birthday buddies. Our books both came out in June of last year.
Oh.
So that's how we started talking.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little
bit
about...
And also, I feel like 2023 authors, we were all just like, okay, how much is social media going to be like, can I just promote my book? So, you know what I mean? I do feel bad for people because so often authors we have to depend on our followings on different platforms to even get the word out. And so, yeah, 2023 was a weird year for that. So I felt a kinship. We had our books come out the same month even.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Burn It Down now. It covers broadly and then in remarkable detail abuse, discrimination, and so much more within the film and television industries. And it's a vital read for anyone working in this industry, but I think it's just as important for people who are fans of movies and TV, because you're the audience for this art, and you should know what people are sometimes going through to bring you your entertainment. So I wanted to ask you, Mo, how did the book come about? Did it start as an article that you realized needed way more room, or was it seeing the broad pattern of things over years that made it clear a full book would be necessary?
Those were contributing factors. I think probably the overwhelming thing, and I can point to a specific moment.
Yeah.
When, obviously there had been abuse and misconduct reporting about the industry before. I don't want to erase the people who not only tried to write about Harvey Weinstein. When people say, why didn't the media do blah? Well, first of all, the industry is on fire and being destroyed.
But aside
from that, people tried and people did do things. People did write about the bad aspects of the industry, but definitely me too. I mean, in terms of me writing about that topic specifically, it broke things kind of wide open. And so, but I was continuing to do that work for years. And in 2021, it was kind of a convergence of many things. My stories were getting longer. Because I do think that you do need to have nuance. You do need to talk to a lot of people. You do need to have more context, not less. So that was part of it. But a big factor was hearing someone say literally word for word about one powerful person in the industry, what someone had said about a different powerful person in the industry who was, a misconduct factory 4 years earlier. It's like, sometimes you have those deja vu experiences that are like the bad kind. I'm like, wait, how is it more than 4 years? How is it 4 years later and people are saying the same sentences to me? This is just making me, you have those moments where you're like, does this make any difference? Am I screaming into a void? Is the void paying
Yeah.
any attention whatsoever? I don't know. So that was kind of a big part of it. And I remember, texting some like yelling, screaming, complaining to a friend. And I looked at the group of texts and I'm like, well, if you take out a lot of the profanity, looks like a book, it's a book proposal. So, I just, I'm actually at the point where I think there will always be a need for the media to talk about companies, people, individuals, formal and informal networks that not only commit abuses but facilitate or enable abuses or look the other way in every industry, but especially in this one where silence is very much golden for the most part, in terms of like, you don't get rewarded for stepping out of line. Quite often, quite the reverse. So I thought I just want to kind of do a mic drop and say this is not, these are not anomalies. We go to the bad result factory and go, why does this factory continue to pump out bad results, bad outcomes? Well, it's right there on the side of the factory. It says bad outcomes here. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's so much bigger than one person. And I got very tired of doing the bad person of the month club.
Yeah.
Don't join that club. Pro tip, don't join. It's a bad club. Don't.
I will make an effort to stay out.
Yeah.
Thank you for the warning.
It's the worst ever subscription. Yeah, no, so I just thought, especially in Hollywood, where people hide behind the scrim of glamour and, we're illuminating our world. We're doing good things. Okay, but if all the people with most of the power look the other way at continual abuse that is reclassified as artistry or passion or energy, I don't want to celebrate that. That's not what's happening here. And I just wanted to, again, like, do a very sort of deep declamorization of, yeah, people are human beings. Everyone has flaws. Everyone has bad days. That's not what my book was about. My book was about systems and formal and informal patterns of codifying abuse as not just necessary but beneficial in Hollywood. It's a lie. And a big thing I feel deeply in my bones is there are a lot of people, as you know, who can't speak out. I'm more protected. I'm more insulated than they are. So if I can do it in a context that is responsible and kind of unimpeachable, my reporting is very difficult and gets fact checked and lawyered a lot. And nobody's ever sued me, knock wood. So I feel very strongly about getting it right. And a thing I'm not going to do is tell people who are thinking of entering the industry, have entered the industry, either rising up through the ranks of the industry, at the lower levels of the industry, or in historically excluded communities within the industry. What I'm not going to do is stand with that group of people that tells them they're not experiencing what they're experiencing and that they should just be grateful for the crumbs that they get. I'm not going to do that. I feel very strongly that if I have a profile, if I have any kind of juice or status, I'm going to use it to tell people it isn't you, it's the system. It really isn't you. And maybe it's you because, you, not you, Susan and Tilly, but I'm saying, again, people have bad days. Everyone I've ever talked to for every story has had a moment where they're like, oh, I handled that badly. I have moments like that.
Sure, we all do.
But I think from the beginning of starting to cover this industry, what I realized was really important was to validate people when I felt it was necessary and beneficial to validate them, because a lot of the industry functions, we hear about like, okay, an individual abuser will keep people in what I call separate silos of pain. Like there's many workplaces that I've reported on where people didn't realize that they were all being gaslit and manipulated and abused in different ways. And they took it because abusers kind of want people to think that they're isolated and they don't have recourse, they don't have community. And so part of what I'm trying to say to people is you do have community. I don't know if you have recourse. but I can tell you for sure that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been trying to do. It makes me very popular at studio parties. Executives love me generally. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I mean, people feel all kinds of ways, but it's always interesting to me after a big story comes out, and certainly after the book came out. I don't want to tell tales because, a lot of the communications that I have with people in the industry are off the record. A lot of people wanted to be in a dialogue with me, and generally people I knew in some way or shape or form, or maybe sometimes not even people I knew, but they thought the book was necessary, and they thought it was, hopefully leading to the kind of conversations that continue to need to happen. Like we need to have them to happen. And beyond that, what I'd really love to do in terms of Hollywood is say, stop talking about stuff and actually just do it. Because earlier I emailed Tilly something that someone pointed out to me, because I feel like I've become like the broken record girl on so many topics, but I'd written something in 2017.
Yes.
The Get Down was canceled and Sense8 was canceled, and all these, like, there was a wave of this sort of first wave of, in a lot of the streaming realms especially, like, wasn't that the kind of like the feeling in like 2015, 16, 13? Oh wow, like they're giving a wider array of creators a chance, and then they're canceling their shows like almost immediately, or within two seasons or 3 seasons. And that hasn't stopped. And I actually wrote about this 3 years ago as well, when I wrote for Vanity Fair. This is not a bug, this is a feature. If you liked that story, if you liked Sense8, okay, cool, we'll do this other thing over here that our algo is telling us has certain elements of that. It's like, no, but that's like, if your family pet gets run over by a car, you don't want your mother to come in the house and say, oh, that's okay, other dogs exist, we'll just go get one of those. No, I want a pet dog with which I had this history.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it is just, using my reporting skills, using my analysis capabilities, and my ability to survey the industry and look at the stats of the industry, because like that's kind of an interesting thing about Hollywood, is there's so many stats. But one thing that I do, I read all kinds of sites. I've always been interested in fan communities. I can't sit there and say I know more about Supernatural than anyone else, but what I can say is that I'm watching, especially for a long time, less so now. I survey the field, you know what I mean? So like I can tell you, how does Jane the Virgin fit into the representation of Latina women on television? Like,
right.
Again, I'm not from that community, but I can tell you, why does it hurt that One Day at a Time was canceled after 3 seasons? Like, what is the context around and behind that?
Right.
So that's kind of what I think I bring to the table. And that book was the hardest thing I've ever done professionally, and I feel like I'm still mentally recovering from it.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
For a while.
It was hard to read.
It's hard. It is hard to read.
And it must have been very hard.
Well, right. Okay. It was hard to read because of the abuses that you talk about, not because it was like poorly written. It's beautifully written. It's wonderfully written. But yeah, I had to stop every chapter and like take a few days because I would get so mad at the injustices. But I also want people to know that it's not just that, there's hope. You sort of outline this way forward at the end, which was really positive. And it's a really, really vital and important book. And I do want to get to the rest of this episode because it's going to be long because there's a lot of TV to talk about. But I do want to take a second to thank you personally for including trans people and the barriers we face in Burn It Down, because so often, even in books or articles like that, we're either forgotten or ignored when discrimination and lack of inclusion are discussed. And I can't tell you how much it healed my heart to have you see us and our struggles and to put them in your book, right along with the struggles of folks from, so many other marginalized communities for every reader to see. It meant so much to me. So thank you for doing that.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I'm weird about taking compliments, but I will try to accept that one. Thank you very much.
That's very Midwestern.
That's very true. Midwestern. It's like I've become very tongue-tied. You get it. Yeah, I think that we're in the same boat. We're trying to highlight.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the work that you're doing, but what you do is really important. So I'll do a very Midwestern thing. I'll turn it around on you.
No.
Yes, I know. Get ready. Gonna compliment you, and you're gonna like it. or at
All
least
our tricks.
tolerate it.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
you're doing a lot of important work. And if I could just interject this, if there's one thing I'm known for, it's, unsolicited advice. I feel like that's 80% of even my writing about the industry. It's like, what if you did this to your show? I mean, who asked me? Nobody. No one asked me. Take care of you, because that's a big theme for me. The last third of the book, I was never going to write a book that was just the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I always, when I pitched it, was saying, we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff around, here's how people are doing it better now. Maybe they could even improve that. But it's always been possible to create an environment in which, yes, people have different points of view, may even have conflict, may even have arguments, may even, maybe not be a personality match or whatever, or they get along great or they don't. There's always been ways to navigate that, that are not toxic, that are not biased, that are not abusive. And so let's talk about the fact that that's possible and we can do that. And it's Melinda Shue Taylor, who I talk a lot to in the book, has an actual training course that she now calls It's Not Rocket Science. It isn't. My spouse actually works in a very different field, which, thank goodness, because otherwise, journalism, I don't know what to tell you. It's bad. So it's a very conservative industry and a very conservative field. And it's, the home office is in the Midwest. It could not be more square. But they fire people for being abusive. And everyone knows that. It's like, this is not hard. Find the people who are continually abusive, who won't change, bench them, make sure they know the consequences for not changing a lot. And then if they don't, bounce them. Goodbye. Yeah. It's not that hard. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing becomes, Hollywood has had more than a century to perfect its systems, formal and informal, of bias, abuse, misconduct, and, codifying much of that again as creativity. I was asked not to swear on this podcast, but I think if you read my book, you'll know how I feel about that. So one thing I sort of understand from the kind of cultural critique that we're doing right now, which is super fun and I love it, but it can be very hard to constantly dwell, or very frequently dwell, in that place of contemplating harm to not just oneself, but to one's community.
Yeah.
So by doing the work that I do, I hope to be someone who can, act as a shield. I mean, a lot of the stories that I do, it's because, the script coordinator wasn't going to get that person fired on their own. But when they come together in community, and I think that the writer's strike and the SAG strike, what's been so instructive to me about Hollywood is that all summer long I was being interviewed, and I would say the following: Hollywood is a cautionary tale and an inspirational tale at the same time. Because a long time ago, the guilds came about because people said, as individuals, we are absolutely powerless and we are being exploited to the hilt. Now we can have less, maybe somewhat fewer instances of exploitation, financially anyway, if we band together and say, no, actually, we don't want the studios to come up with a guild that we then join that is not at all looking out for our interests.
Right.
So there are ways in which Hollywood has demonstrated to the world that collective action can be effective. But as individuals, the folks, I mean, I talk to a lot of folks who are doing activism around the industry, as I'm sure you do too.
Uh-huh.
It's important that we have these people. I don't, it's not up to me whether people consider me one of those folks, but I definitely have been pointing out things I think need to be rectified or altered or evolved for a long time. But we didn't make the system how it is. We deserve to be happy. We deserve to feel joy. And I would just say that to anyone listening, that if you just think sometimes I don't know how to deal with this, or I don't know how to change this, correct. Go have a pizza. Get a hug from someone you love.
It's pizza and hugs. A+ on both.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Go, within this world that is very difficult, it's really important to say, how much of this is me tilting at windmills, and and how much of that is going to leave me in a place where I'm so burned out that I can't do it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm actually trying to. I think I'm doing a little bit of a contemplation right now about what my next moves are, because people are like, "Are you going to do a part 2, Burn It Down, Electric Boogaloo?" And I'm like, and at that point I begin to feel that, oh, maybe I didn't make it clear, which I do at the very end of the book, that I don't like, the point was to show that these are the bad outcomes that the bad outcome factory comes out with.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how to say this another way. So yeah, I mean, I would just say people who want to create and do what you were put on this earth to do, and just make sure that you take time for yourself, and to understand that if we're going to fix things as individuals, we can make a difference, but as communities, I think we can make even more impact. And I think you've created a community around your work, so congrats.
Thank
right?
you. Okay. Well, before we dive into television, do you want to remind folks where they can find you online after listening?
Yes, I'm on Bluesky. I think it's maureenryan.social, I think. But you can find me through my Linktree, which is under Maureen Ryan, and also maureenryan.com has links to a lot of places that I hang out. I'm also on Instagram, maureen66. So that's probably the most places to find me.
Perfect.
And I have a newsletter on maureen.com. I have a newsletter that I'm very erratic with, but if you want to sign up for my newsletter, there's info on my site.
You should do that too. Do all those things. Okay, so let's dive into TV and see if the representation will get any better. Once again, I'm only including things that we saw in this past year and that we saw an entire seasons of. Shows that are still only partway through their seasons are not included, because until the season's over, I obviously cannot know how many trans people appeared. And to caution you once again, in order to discuss the trans rep in these shows, it necessitates talking about them, so there will be some spoilers. Okay, so before we get in, Mo, was there any trans rep that stood out to you in TV this year?
Well, one thing that I thought about, because I don't think I've seen you write about this show, which is fine, not everyone can watch everything.
Yeah.
But Foundation on Apple.
Yeah.
I think Apple's overall doing a lot of interesting stuff in sci-fi.
They really are.
Yeah. So Silo was really interesting. I'm looking forward to the next season of that. Severance, which, boy, gosh, again, like now I feel like I've been given the gift of Tilly brain. I'm like, wait a minute, Severance. 2 different parts of you. And you
yes, it's a very transy premise, that show.
So, right?
Yeah.
Now I get it. Silo, For All Mankind, which I don't think.
For All Mankind, I love it.
But I love it. I do love it. I don't think that this is their best season finale, but anyway. But Foundation, first of all, Leah Harvey plays Salvor Hardin. Leah Harvey is non-binary. So I think,
did not know that. I talk about Foundation in a little bit. I didn't know that. That's okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
See how I didn't even know. You don't always know. That's great.
I have a further thought beyond that.
Yes.
Have you seen any of Foundation? I mean,
yes, we've
no judge.
seen both seasons. So
we have caught up just recently.
Yeah.
I actually think that there's. I don't even know how I'm thinking about this. I just have a nebulous idea around the idea of the Cleons and identity, and I don't know what kind of allegory I would call it, but there's a subplot about how one of the Cleons is different, and he tries to hide that difference, and he feels that, which it's a very interesting premise, because the Cleons are this genetic dynasty. It's just, they keep decanting the same, essentially genetically the same.
Yeah, clones of the same guy.
Clones of the same guy, and yet they are living in different times and have different tendencies and personalities to some degree. So I think it's a really interesting concept, and the idea that, I don't know, I think the idea of what is it to have your own identity, and how do you separate yourself out? I think honestly, the more I think about the Cleons, that whole setup is, they're also very powerful and very protected, and is the word I throw around a lot. They're very insulated.
Yeah.
And I think that this premise, in a way, is designed to how can you feel that you have your own identity that you can thrive within if there's two copies of you at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that differentiating yourself and being your own person. I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting subtext there. And again, I don't, as you can tell from my rambling, I don't have a fully formed premise about it, but I think it's an interesting idea. And
you've got my gears turning now.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now, and like, the Cleons, their behavior is very regulated.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. And also throughout the second season, they talk a lot about where does this come from, kind of.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of
why are we like this? Why those are big things.
I may have to dig into this later, but yeah.
No, I think it's I agree, Susan. I totally agree. I think it's we see this a lot with people like the royal family in England. They are policed in a sense that like the gender presentation has to be this.
Yes, there are so many rules about their clothing and
they are very much
as well
propagating. This is what this kind of person looks. The presentation of everything down to, and that they know that they're going to be photographed every minute. How their bodies, how their lives, how their parenting is questioned. All of it. I definitely think I agree with you, Susan, that the way the Cleons are presented, there's a lot about, there's rules, right? There's rules about how the Cleons can present themselves. And it becomes a crisis in the second season because there is a brother Dawn, who doesn't conform and tries to step outside of the set, very, very narrow path. And it's
even with medical changes to his body. So you really got me going now. Okay.
All right.
So
that was the goal. Like get some
a little fire burning in my brain. Okay.
There you go. Right.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about Foundation a little bit more later because there was something that I saw in there that I wanted to speak about that it was kind of important. So we'll get there, but we're going to go alphabetical. So
we're going to clear out the ones with the zeros.
Let's do it.
Okay. Abbott Elementary Season 2, 0. However, in one episode, a kid goes through his sales pitch for selling chocolate for a fundraiser and says, "Hello, sir or ma'am," or otherwise identifying human, which is basically a reworded pronoun joke, and guess what else I'm also just so tired of?
It is like the laziest joke in the world.
It's so...
That is why I hate.
And I love Abbott Elementary, but even these shows, these implicit biases seep in. And like, this is funny, right? No, it's not. It's not.
I guarantee you that some people associated with every show that does this, or does that thing of like, oh no, it's a male character wearing a dress.
Yeah.
I guarantee that in the minds of some of those people on some of those shows, they think that they're doing a good thing.
Probably.
That's the thing that's scary about Hollywood. It's like, oh, wow, you thought what?
Whoa.
No, that's not.
You did the opposite of what you were trying to do. Okay.
We could talk about that a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
Ahsoka Season 1, 0. Bad Batch Season 2, 0. The Bear Season 1, 0. The Bear Season 2, 2.
So I'll have to say I'm traumatized by The Bear forever because I am Italian.
Especially that Christmas episode.
And I could probably map half of my family to these specific...
That Christmas episode is very traumatic.
Like,
okay.
Crap. Okay.
Moving on. Okay. 2.
Let's go.
Trans woman April Lichtman plays a culinary school student who has a couple background lines, but the character doesn't have a name and isn't mentioned as trans. How many of you knew she was there? I wasn't even sure until I looked her up afterward. And non-binary actor CG plays a chef, but the character's gender is never mentioned. However, there's also a scene where Tina and Ibrahim misgender each other for fun when they meet up again after being mad at each other. I don't really understand this or why it's meant to be funny, but the characters think it is. Misgendering, not funny, actually. Okay, Blue Eye Samurai. 0 technically, but
it's a really good show.
It's so good. Mo is the one.
Watch it with children nearby.
Don't. Mo's the one who said you should watch this. Okay, so I've got a lot to say about this show.
Of course you do.
Okay, so the show is about Mizu, half Japanese, half white woman with blue eyes who is hated for who she is in a very xenophobic society. It's very much about being physically different and being treated as a monster for it, and it's a pretty stunning trans allegory. Her mission is to kill the 4 white men in all of Japan that might have fathered her because she blames them for, quote, making her a monster.
Now, there's a lot to unpack in
so much. And as part of hiding, she disguises herself as a man, which includes chest binding that you see in multiple episodes. We learn that her mother forced her to pretend to be a boy, quote, for her own safety, since people were looking for a blue-eyed girl. She had to pretend to be a boy to escape the violence she'd experienced as herself, which is basically what boymoding is. And yes, there's a Trans Tuesday on boymoding and girlmoding at tillystranstuesdays.com. This includes a scene of Mizu's mother cutting all her hair off. We also see a flashback of her as a kid binding her chest when a bully said she looked soft. This is her mother and society forcing her to play the role of a boy and a man rather than be her true self. Ringo, her apprentice and the show's comic relief, at one point vows not to tell anyone you're a girl, and Mizu stops him with her sword to his neck before he can finish saying girl. Mizu also always wears a scarf around her neck, as a trans woman might, to hide an Adam's apple.
I totally noticed that too.
Yeah. Her mission of hunting down the people who made her a monster reads a lot like a self-hating trans person who hates who they are and wants to cut their transness out of their lives. There's a portion where she found happiness living as a woman with a husband, but for story reasons that are immaterial here, they weren't intimate for a very long time. But once they were, he realized something was different about her and says, quote, I want to see all of you. Now in the show, this is about her remarkable prowess with a sword, but he also literally says to her, show me your blade, which I mean, as euphemisms for a pre-op or no-op trans woman go, is pretty dang specific.
Okay, but that's a little cheesy ball, if that's really what they were doing.
Okay.
I'm just going to say.
But once she does show him her prowess with the blade, he becomes afraid. He turns on her. She shows her true self, a woman who is good with a sword, and she is instantly cast out and hated by those who claim to love her. There's a scene in the finale where Mizu rises in front of flames, and there's a picture of a phoenix on the wall behind the fire. And the entire concept of the phoenix is incredibly transy. One version of you dies so that another may rise from the ashes. And at the end of the finale, Mizu and Akemi, another woman on the show who's had her father and other men controlling her entire life, are both free of those men and have captured and controlled the men who tormented them. And that very much reads to me like a trans woman overcoming the shell of the man she was forced to pretend to be, locking him down so that she was finally in control. The show is really important in the ways it deals with racism and multiracial people and gender and sexism. But to me, the entire season story of Mizu herself also read really strongly as a trans feminine allegory in a whole lot of different ways. As far as I know, there weren't any trans people working on the show. But what's the standard refrain I've said so many times? People may be trans and not know it yet, but also it could just be coincidence because trans stories are human stories. Now, Mo, I know this is the one that jumped out at you and you mentioned it to me. Like, what was it about it that ticked something off for you to said that there's some transness going on here?
Well, so much of the show is about hiding Mizu hiding who she is and feeling. I mean, one of the things that's hardest to write, and you know this because you're writers, I don't need your characters to be likable. I need them to be interesting. And Mizu, from the very first minute to me, was interesting. And
one of the things
I love about Mizu is that she's messy in a character coherent way. And what I mean by that is that I rooted for Mizu, or I was certainly cared about Mizu's fate and that of other characters too. But here's what I think is interesting. I mean, there's so many things, but it flips a lot of there's just expected grooves that Hollywood goes in, right? That, oh, well, here's this story again. What is it? A cisgender white man who has trouble with the women in his life? Who could, what? Never seen that.
Never seen that. No, never seen that before.
Not familiar.
Edgy.
Could you make 2 to 3 million stories about that? So they used the issue of race to bring in a lot of ideas, I think.
Yeah.
Race and identity in a society where how people were allowed to exist, it was a narrow realm. Like if you were the son of a farmer, I don't think that you could, most people are just making poverty wages, and how they could live their lives was constrained. But it's an intensely, the society in terms of how people appear, certainly, and this is not a rare thing in the world, is very, there's a lot of punishment given out to those who do not meet certain standards and codes. And I think that we see this with more than one character, with more than Mizu. That the woman who we think is, she's from this well-off family, her existence is also constrained. And one of the things I loved the most about this season is that the idea of, I forget her name now. Sorry, can you remind me?
Akemi?
Akemi.
Yeah.
Akemi. The idea of women in that time doing sex work, or people in that time doing sex work, was absolutely not shamed, even remotely. And I think that, again, this is coming at something in a new way, because, oh my gosh, as a critic of this industry for 30 years, what I do not need to ever see again is characters for no reason at all having a meeting in a strip club. You know what I mean? Or like, what?
Yeah.
There's a lot of male character actors in this piece. All of them are white. All of them are cisgender. And what? There's a brothel in this piece too. What? Who can? And this is where most of the female characters, or non-male characters, are like, oh gosh, we've seen that 100 times. But what I mean, it's very assured storytelling. I mean, I hope I'm not giving away the game here. I know Michael Green, one of the co-creators, a little bit. Like, I don't like. I've interviewed him, and we know our paths have crossed over the years. I think he's. I mean, I love much of his past work, the shows that he's worked on in the past. And so, but this one just knocked me out, in part because I was emailing him. I have a book that's literally called, I could go get it for you, 100 Views of Edo. Like, this particular time in Japanese culture and the art that arose from it, what they call the art of the floating world, it was very much driven by people who were frequenting these places where sex work occurred, and there was drinking, and there were there was this explosion of culture, and the way that visually they depict things in the show, I could go on about for hours. But I think, how can I say this in a way that's, when there's a character who is either really or perceived to be from a marginalized community or a historically excluded community, there is this very strong tendency in Hollywood to make them noble.
Yeah.
And to make them kind of non-human in a way.
Yeah, they can't be real or messy or flawed.
They can't be real or messy. There are times in the season of Blue Eye Samurai where I'm like, wow, Mizu, you just did something. This is disappointing. You made a bad choice. So, like me, I'm sort of saying, because Mizu, without making Mizu a victim, or without making it tragedy porn, can I say that? Is that a thing I can say?
Yes,
without making it about that, Mizu is deeply scarred by the way that she's been treated.
Yep.
And most of it's sort of like we've talked about with the industry, she didn't create that society. She did not create these factors that very really and truly made her feel literally and figuratively isolated and alone.
Right.
She didn't create that world. It's not. So on the one hand, it's not her fault, and you're seeing her confront these systems of power. And it's kind of like, that's where the cool, rebel energy of the story can come from. But I don't know, maybe she didn't want to be a rebel, but she was kind of forced into this otherness, into this other space that she didn't want to be in. And I think what's really interesting about it is that she has decided to externalize her rage, but she's also internalized it too. And there's a lot in Mizu that my heart breaks for her, but I also see it driving negative choices or questionable choices. There's a lot of self-hatred. And I think that's a thing that storytelling can be so great at. I mean, Murderbot, just to return to that, which I will literally every time you ever talk to me. A lot of the Murderbot story is about, wait, maybe I deserve personhood. Maybe I deserve to not be treated like an end table, to not be treated like a killing machine. Maybe then it's like very gradually over time. And I think that where they start Mizu from is a very dark place. And that's what makes for the story, gives the story the energy. Because I can certainly say from experience that wanting to externalize and make somebody pay for how you feel is very relatable. But and maybe wrongs do need to be righted. Maybe some people do need to be stabbed with a very long sword. Who can say? Are there people I've wanted to stab with very long swords? Read my book is all I'm going to tell you. You can decide the answer to that question.
I'll make a list.
I would not do it. I'm not a violent person. I'm the person that, like, if I find a spider, I carefully pick it up and take it outside.
Yeah, we take them outside. That's right.
But this is the catharsis of storytelling, right? I can
Absolutely.
be like, yeah, stab that guy. But there's a part of me, Zoo, a very smart therapist said to me, anger is a secondary emotion. And I tried for a very long time to prove her wrong, and she's not wrong. What's behind the anger? Anger is valid. I'm not saying don't be angry. I'm saying what's behind it. That is also part of it. Mizu was not meaningfully kept safe. And I feel like there's a huge part of her that is like, I'm going to stab people because I do not want to deal with the grief and the hurt that I feel.
Yeah.
Because the world harmed me and I was powerless. And so I think that in terms of the allegory of trans folks, I mean, I don't want to speak for anyone who's trans, but, you know, I was in the closet as a bi person because I was told my entire life that bi people don't exist.
Right.
You can't
or you're just
exist.
gay in training or whatever, right?
You can't
that
be
nonsense.
that. You're, I mean, Sex and the City at the height of the aughts HBO dominance, buys a stop on the way to Gay Town. And I'm like, okay, once again, I'm being told I didn't come out until I was in my, I don't know, I think I'm 1,000 years old in my soul. So I always forget, but like, it was not until like the last decade or so, you know what I mean? So it's a beautiful, absolutely visually gorgeous exploration of the literal and figurative quest of someone who does not have a place in the world and will make one. And so that's the noble side of the coin. The less noble side of the coin is that, Mizu, you can't exist on rage alone. It's not a healthy place to live.
Right. And she's got to figure out how to...
And she honestly has no self-esteem.
No. Other than in her sort of abilities. But beyond that.
Yeah, it's like, instead of questioning that she's been told she's a monster her entire life.
Right.
Like, well, I'll
believes it, and it's there.
Believes it.
Right. You made me a monster. And
she internalized it, and she's continually pushing people away because on some level, Mizu is accepting this idea that she is unwanted and unwantable. And I think that that's why they gave them so many interesting places to go. Please let it run for more than 2 seasons. I'm begging the world.
This show, it's got so much to say.
It started out in such an interesting place.
Yeah.
And they crushed it in that first season. I just absolutely adored it.
Yeah. It's so good. Fall of the House of Usher 1. Episode 2 features non-binary actor J.R. Tanako as Faraj. Faraj's gender never comes up, and they meet a grisly fate, as do like 17,627,917 cis people. Just want you to understand that their death wasn't a case of burying your queer so much as being at a show where everyone dies. The Flash, Season 9. 1. Nicole Main's Dreamer from Supergirl guested on an episode, but she's not mentioned as trans, and so if you never watched Supergirl when the character showed up here, you'd have no idea she was a trans woman. For All Mankind, Season 4, 0. Love the show. Maybe one of my favorites, but this was like the least queer season they've had, so they need to get back to their queerness because I missed that. Okay. Foundation Season 2. I had 0, but I've since learned right on this recording that there is 1, so that's excellent. But the other thing I noticed and that I wanted to talk about, there's a group of people called Mentalics who have various telepathic powers and have banded together because they were treated as monsters and experienced violence in their communities. And they placed beacons to call out to others like them so more of them wouldn't be afraid to come out. They read very, very queer. But then it was revealed that they were nefarious and evil, and my heart fell, right? Because this is the kind of thing that happens to us all the time. But then in the finale, you find out they were all being mind-controlled by one evil person, and that really saved it for me, undid the harm that I thought had been done. And I think that just illustrates the importance of not judging a story on its representation, even allegorical representation, until you've seen the whole thing. Heartstopper, Season 1. 1. This show got an honorable mention last year when we were only partway through the season, but now we get to talk about it in full. Elle is a trans girl played by trans actress Yasmin Finney. It's mentioned by boys that she used to sit with them at an all-boys school and now goes to a girls' school, and that's a pretty great way to mention a character's trans organically. In one episode, Elle mentions one of the teachers always dead-named her and was a transphobe. But the show also deals with homophobia experienced at the boys' school, so given that, I think it's okay. It tonally fits in right with what the cis characters are going through. And then you get to Heartstopper Season 2, which had 4 trans characters.
Wow, what?
Yeah, I know, it's unheard of. Elle is a main character again, and they even reminded the audience she's trans when another trans girl, there can be 2, who knew, tells her it would be so nice to go to this very queer art school they're checking out. Because then instead of being, quote, the trans girl, they could just be themselves. That trans girl was played by trans actress Belle Priestley. The episode also features trans man Ash Self as Felix. They both appear again a few times throughout the season. Also at an art show that Elle has a piece at, the art school's principal is played by trans woman Rebecca Root. There's also a teen cis boy, Isaac, who's coming to terms with being asexual or aromantic or both. And while neither of those is part of transness, it's still part of the queer community, and I think this is the only character in anything we watched this year that was either of those things. Justified City Primeval. Season 1, 0. The Last of Us Season 1. 1. Bella Ramsey plays Ellie. Bella is non-binary, but Ellie is a cis girl. Leverage Redemption Season 2, 0. Loki Season 2, 0. Sylvie was a great trans allegory in Season 1, but I didn't get that vibe from her as much in Season 2. It doesn't mean it wasn't there, but nothing jumped out at me right away. The Mandalorian Season 3, 0. Monster High Season 1, 1. Frankie is one of the lead characters and they are non-binary and introduce themselves with they/them pronouns. Caveat, Susan and I are writing for Monster High in Season 2. That doesn't make me biased in reporting on Frankie, but I wanted to be transparent. Frankie is played by non-binary actor Iris Menace, and they're wonderful, and I adore Frankie so much. They're my favorite character both to write and watch. Mrs. Davis, Season 1. Actually, it's the only season. It was a limited series.
Yeah.
0. What a great show. But there is one trans joke in the finale about the algorithm that runs everyone's lives, which is explicitly woman-coded through the entire show, using her power to, quote, swing her big dick around. And that just seemed really weird and out of place. You see, it's funny because a woman's voice and a penis, but they're together. Can you imagine? You know what? Many people can. My Adventures with Superman Season 1, 0. In the episode with Fifth Dimensional Imp Mitch's Picklick, yes, I can pronounce that, let me remind you I'm a huge Superman nerd, there is a league of Lois Lanes from across the multiverse. One is Lois Lane and appears male but still wears earrings. It's not mentioned if Lois is a butch cis woman or a trans man or non-binary, and I don't think the character has any lines, so I don't think I can count this one. But it was still nice to see.
And that show is super cute.
It's really cute. Okay. Never Have I Ever Season 4. 2. Alexandra Billings returns as the school counselor who's still not mentioned as trans, but it's at least a bigger role than the previous season she was in. The character of Fabiola has a they friend named Addison who appears and they/them pronouns are used to refer to them and they're played by a non-binary actor. But in the same episode, someone calls the country of America a she and a teacher says it's nice to be reminded of America's pronouns. Another pronoun joke. How novel. Oh, and in another episode, a drunk student calls a cis woman sir. Misgendering, still not funny. Only Murders in the Building Season 3, 0. Thank you for being here, Mo.
My pleasure.
Okay, we didn't plan it this way, but the discussion was so good and important that I didn't want to edit any of it down. So we're going to stop there for this week. Come back next week for the conclusion of the trans rep in TV talk and discussion of where things were at overall. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The Google Doc and social media versions of this week's topic and all past topics are available at tillystranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Bluesky, Twitter, and Hive, on Mastodon at tillybridges@mastodon.social, at facebook.com/TillySBridges, and on Insta and Threads at HeckYeahTillyBridges. And you can find Susan on most of those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Bluesky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of TillysTransTuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.